for joining me here on Mom Squad, the show where we talk all things parenting. I'm Maureen Kyle. We are now in the month of November, so we've been back to school a while, but I know among my friends, we are all still adjusting to the after-school routine, especially when it comes to homework and projects. And it's not just parents stressing out. Obviously, the kids feel more pressure than we do. A 2018 recommendation from the National Education Association and National Parent-Teacher Association broke down how much homework kids should be getting each week. The recommendation for first grade is 10 minutes of daily homework. For second grade, it goes up to 20 minutes a day. It increases 10 minutes daily for each grade until you get up to about 120 minutes of homework a night for a 12th grader. That equals 10 hours a week. But it always depends on your school, your teacher, and your child. And then factor in balancing around extracurricular activities. In a minute, we're going to talk to nationally renowned parenting educator Laura Lynn Knight about how the time out after school routine makes homework a little bit easier for everyone. But first, a mom who shares my pain. I'm bringing in Lindsey Buckingham. Thank you so much for joining me to talk about this, because I feel like we are in the same mode of like just getting into figuring out that after school routine. And I'm sure your daughter is getting a whole bunch of projects all of a sudden, which mine is too.
Let me tell you something. Fourth grade, and that's the grade that Audrey's in, was a table flip.
Yeah.
Because she had homework last year, but I feel like this year it's more serious, it's more demanding,
Right.
which I totally understand. Yeah. But I will tell you that we have been hitting the ground running with homework. And one thing that's been a factor is finding the time for the homework before all of those activities that she's in.
Yeah, I mean, that's overwhelming. You think about fourth grade, she's 9, right?
Yeah,
okay,
9,
so mine is 9, but she's older for her grade. So she's in 3rd grade. And I'm watching the stress happen. And I know this happens for even as we're talking about adding projects and adding homework. And then you have, especially in high school, when the pressures of the sports and the extracurricular activities gets increased, that stress level of when do you fit it all in? Kids are up, up until late night hours, or maybe they're waking up earlier or trying to cram it in during study hall or whatever. It's sort of like, how do you find that balance? Do you notice the kids stressing out? Are you stressed out?
We're all stressed out. The one thing is, in addition to finding the right time to do the homework, we are balancing Audrey's activities, Danny's activities, dinner. Do we do the dinner before the activity or after?
Yeah.
And when should we do homework? Should we wait till the morning? And sometimes we do. I don't always do a great job at reading my kids, and whether or not they're just fighting homework or whether or not they really need a break.
Yeah.
But when I do notice that, I'm like, okay, what can we conquer now? Especially with Danny. Danny's 7.
Yeah.
So there are some things, he has a good, I'd say, hour in between Audrey's bus and his bus. Sometimes we'll hold his homework until the morning.
Yeah.
When we can have the full attention, Audrey's on the bus, we have an hour to sit down, he's paying attention.
Yeah.
We're trying to do both. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Right.
How are we gonna manage all that?
Right. I don't know any parent that says, we've got it down. I know how to manage this.
No. And if they do, I want the secret.
Right, right. Well, I mean, and it's going to fluctuate for every person, every family, every kid. But like I said, we got a chance to talk to Laura Lynn Knight. She is a parenting educator. She has a background in education, and now she talks to media outlets all over the world about how to find that balance. So take a listen to what we talked about when it comes to managing homework. You brought up homework struggles, which is why we're talking today.
Yes.
And I have one in 3rd grade, one in 1st, and then a preschooler. So I'm not even in the depths of homework struggles, but I'm already seeing it. I'm already trying to figure out what works best for kids. And sometimes my 3rd grader, she loves to do her homework on the bus or right when she gets home, but then I notice some stress levels. When do you think kids should be thinking about doing their homework?
And, you and I are similar. So I have a 1st grader also, and I have a 4th grader. And it's amazing kind of how much homework we've even had, even up at this point, right? Where they are so little and you think, okay, I'm not even there yet. And at the same time, I'm still already noticing this increase of stress, or it's a little bit hard for them, or even if they like it, it's still weighing on them. And really, if we think about the school day, I, as a former elementary school teacher, I mean, I remember how exhausted I was by the end of the day, because we're always learning, we're academically learning, we're socially learning, we're emotionally learning. And so our kids, although they might be having an amazing experience at school, they're really just using their brain and their bodies so much. And then finally they get home after a very long day at school, and it's kind of like, hurry up, let's get on to our homework now. And so what I say to a lot of parents is, where's the time to decompress? Where's the time in the child's schedule where they can sit down on the ground and just get out their Lego, or sit down on the ground and play, or go outside and kick the soccer ball, or just do something to kind of just let all of that go from school and then move on to homework.
Mm-hmm. And do you think this applies to teens too?
Absolutely, because I think teens, their brains are developing even more. They have even more of that social and emotional going on at school. And so to come straight home and just launch into the homework routine can just be really taxing and tiring on them. And what I hear from a lot of families is they're sick of the power struggle that ensues because of the homework. So parents are saying, you need to do your homework, and you need to do your homework now. And then the children are pushing back, or maybe they're not, but then they're getting whiny, and you don't want them to be whiny. And then all of a sudden, there you are, you haven't seen your child all day. It's finally an opportunity to connect with them, to spend time with them, and you're in an argument or you're in a fight. And we don't want to be that way as parents. We don't want to have that dynamic with our children. So giving them some space and time before they enter in is going to make it easier for you too. What I see is that those power struggles greatly decrease because everyone's just a little bit more grounded, if you will, like just more in their own space and has more capacity after they've had a bit of a break after school.
Right. Laura, let me ask you too, since we're in the same phase of parenting. I'm just starting all of the after school activities. This was our first year of a lot of after school sports. So I felt like the rush was, okay, wait, do a little homework now, because then you have to go here, and then we're going to eat, and then you have to finish your homework after dinner. And so it felt like we were constantly rushing, but because the evenings are so busy.
It's true. There's such a balance, and there's, we do the sports and we do the music, and then you kind of add it all up, and they're at school all day, and it's kind when is there time for homework, and when is there time for even to sit down and have dinner? And so I really suggest for families that they sit down with their children or their child, and you say, okay, this is our schedule. We have homework, we have these after school activities, I know you're at school. Let's come up with a game plan. Let's find a solution for how homework is going to fit best in our family and feel best for you. Now, some children might say, I want to do it on the bus on the way home, or I want to do it the second I walk in the door. And if your child wants to do that and that works well for your family, that's wonderful. Use that method. But what I find is most children say, I want a bit of a break. And yes, I will do, X, Y, and Z in my homework. Maybe it's my math homework, or maybe I can do my 20 minutes of reading on the way to sports. But really, I need a snack, and I want to have just a little bit of playtime with you as my parent, and then, or just I want to hang out with you as my parent if they're older. And then, yes, let's go do our activity, or let's do homework as soon as we get home before we have dinner. And there's no easy way, because we can't add time to the day. I wish we could. We could just kind of extend it and give those extra hours. And the last thing I'll say about after school activities is, if you find your child can't get their homework done and they're melting down and it's a struggle, then it's a time to reevaluate how many after school activities you're doing, because sometimes we just can't do it all. I think that's a lesson we are learning as parents, and that we get to teach our children.
Right. I know if we're exhausted, the kids are probably exhausted too.
Yes.
I want to talk about that time before bed too, because I know a lot of families, especially ones that have extracurricular activities, then the homework's getting pushed to that twilight hour where they are exhausted and now they're just starting a project. Can that be detrimental to not only the schoolwork, but just their effort that they're putting into it?
It really can be so hard on them. I mean, I love how you said those twilight hours. When my kids were little, my mom would come over and help with them, and she would call it the witching hour.
Yeah.
And we would always laugh because it was like, oh yes, this is a very, very hard time of the day for everyone, you know, because we're just so stretched and we're so exhausted and we're tired. And are we really learning if we're doing our project in that hour, if we're racing to get things done right before bed? And what message are we teaching children when we do that? Are we teaching them to check the boxes? Is that what the intention of homework is? Is it just another box to be checked? Or, you know, really the intention of homework is that we want to reiterate what they're learning in school. And it's actually an opportunity for us as parents to have insight into what they are doing at school, kind of gauge where they are, if they need extra support. And it can be a really special time for us to actually spend time with them. I think that's a misconception for many of us of that we just need to get homework done. Yeah. Like, let's just clear that off our plate. But actually, it's a time that we get to bond and connect. So if that is a hard hour for you, then again, we have to go back and reevaluate when can homework be done? And does that mean less of an after school activity? Is that one day a week? Or can you ask your teacher for homework on Mondays and Tuesdays because you know the rest of the week is busy? Can they give it to you ahead of time so that your child can get it done ahead of time? You know, is your school flexible? So being really curious about homework can often help solve a lot of the major problems that we see.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I do want to bring up too, because having your educator background. I mean, you've been in the front of the classroom, you know how kids learn, you know how involved to get. So how involved should parents be? Because even though my kids are in those early grades, I'm always kind of trying to be carefully walking that line of how much do I help? Because I want them to learn the material, but that, you know, I don't want to do their projects for them and I don't want to do their homework for them, but they do need help sometimes. And if they're really struggling, how do you walk that balance?
It is a fine balance to walk. And some children, they come home and they really don't need any help and they don't need support. And then they can sit there and they can do their homework. And still, even though I have children that are very much like that, where they don't need a ton of scaffolding from me, I don't have to always do a lot, I still like to be there and be present because I know that that's time that we have together. And so I'll still sit with them. And when I'm sitting with them, what I love is that they'll often share little bits and pieces about their day, or they'll say, oh yeah, I'm doing this for homework. And oh, it reminded me of what we did at school. And I kind of get to connect with them and hear more about, you know, what is happening for them. So no, I don't think parents should be doing all of their child's homework. Yes, I think it's an opportunity to still participate and be engaged. And the last thing I'll say is if you notice that you're sitting with your child and they're really struggling through their homework, then again, it's time to go back to the teacher, because homework in its intention is meant to be a review of what a child has already learned and not a brand new teaching.
So Laura and I also talked about how to motivate. I know that maybe in your household, bribes are always happening. Do bribes work? That was the big question I had for her. And her answer was pretty interesting because, you know, when we think bribes, and we've all fallen victim to this, in my household, it's fine, you can watch a show if you get all of your homework done. Or sometimes I know it's like, you can have that piece of candy, but you have to do your spelling words and your math homework first. And so I was asking her about that because she's been in the front of the classroom. She knows how to get kids motivated. And she said the best thing to do is to make sure that the kids are having fun. That's the best motivator while they're doing their actual work. So if you have the special markers that it's like, okay, well, when we're doing this homework, you can take out these special markers, or, you know, when you're in it with them and maybe making it a little bit extra, which sounds exhausting because we're already talking about how it's a crunch for time.
How much extra?
But, you know, like what else can we do? You know, do we put a sticker on their homework for them first before you know, I don't know. It's that hard.
I do the same thing.
It's a hard thing to figure out, but it's like what speaks to your kid.
I think I struggle with the same thing because I want that we need to get it done. We have to get it done.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to get out the door.
Right.
And if we don't, then it's this constant struggle. I will tell you, that really resonates with me because when we're in a time crunch, whether that's trying to get to an activity or on the days that they don't have activities, but we need to get the bedtime routine going, I'm finding myself, okay, do your homework, and then I do go back. I'm like, okay, well, this is spelled wrong, and I'm like erasing it. I'm like, should I be doing this, or should I have her rewrite it? I'm writing their names. I'm like, wait, I gotta stop. I gotta stop.
Yeah.
So that being said, sometimes I do say, all right, if we get homework done by 5:30, everybody gets an ice cream, and I never know. I never know if am I helping them? Is this a bad idea?
Right.
Then every night they're like, we get an ice cream now?
Right.
Like, no.
I did my work. Now where's my reward?
A part of life.
Yeah, I know. And you know what? Even jumping in, like how you said, erasing. This is the first year for projects for us, and I know we're just scratching the surface with projects. And I was helping. There was a book report where my oldest needed to like wrap a cereal box and color the cereal box and write a summary. And I mean, I was proofreading. I was like, do what did she call? She had a word for it where it was sort of she said scrap copy or something like that, or scratch copy or something. And I said, yes, you have to write it out first. And that I felt like, okay, so I'm showing her how to maybe do, you know, a first draft before you do the final draft on a final project that you're handing in. But then I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm helping to draw lines to make sure that they're, you know, she's writing out neatly. And I was helping her look up pictures to draw. And the way Laura put it is, how much scaffolding do your kids need? And that helped me a lot think of, you know, I'm not doing it for them. What kind of support at what age, which is age appropriate, helps them learn this is how to do it, so that maybe next time they remember that I drew straight lines so she can write her sentences so they're not all jumbled all over the page.
Right. And then you're like, sometimes you're crossing lines too, because you have 3 kids of all different ages. I have a son and a daughter, different ages. So I'll be helping with Audrey and I'm like, okay, this is the appropriate amount of support.
Right.
And then I'll like transition to Danny and I'm like, no, he needs more support. He's only 7.
Yeah.
So it's jumping back and forth with that too. And remembering that the younger ones need a little bit of support, but it's hard when you're mixing them all together.
Yeah, you know, and you brought up nighttime routine, because then I have a 4-year-old who really needs a bedtime routine or else she's not going to bed. So lately what we've been running into is my 9-year-old is still up until like 9 o'clock at night doing homework, 9 or 9:30, because she's had the extracurricular activities that my 4-year-old doesn't. And my 4-year-old needs the wind down, bedtime, we're reading 3 books, and now it's time for bed. And then she's getting upset because her older sister is still up. Why is she staying up and I'm not? You know, we have that kind of balance. And this is I did a mom squad weeks ago, kind of like before we got into all of all of the back to school stuff. It was sort of a launch of back to school. I talked to a teacher who's a local teacher that is just known for her tough talk with parents. And I asked her about, you know, what happens when your kid is struggling to get that homework done because they're in a couple of sports and you have practices and practices. And she goes, what's your priority? Is your priority for your kid to be in sports, or is it that they learn and that they're doing their homework? Like parents who say, sorry, my kid didn't get their homework done because they were at football, baseball, swim, whatever it may be. She said they need to reprioritize. And I know we didn't air that one the way we've been airing these across different cities. So I like to think of that. It was sort of like a punch in the gut too of, if your extracurricular schedule is getting in the way of your kids' learning, she says we need to reprioritize, that was a kick in the pants, I have to admit.
You know what? We just went through this, and it was so hard on all of us.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to break our kids' hearts and keep them from something that they love. But there was an incident where we forgot about homework. And by we, I don't want to place the blame, but my daughter forgot her homework. And so I had a talk with her dad, and I said, you know what? She can't go to soccer.
Yeah.
She has to do her homework. Totally on the same page. That was hard. Like I said, I didn't want to see her sit out from something that she loves to do. And of course, there's that friend aspect. She's having fun. But she didn't get her homework done.
Yeah.
So we sat out soccer, and we did her homework.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't come to that, but I agree.
Yeah.
I think that the homework comes first, at least in our household. And what I mean by that is if we see that she starts struggling in school or she's not finishing up, then we have to start making some tough choices.
Yeah. And as Laura mentioned, always talk to your teacher, your kid's teacher, if you see them struggling just with the homework and it has nothing else to do with the balance of activities or anything like that. So. Yeah. Lindsey, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
It's always good to run things past you and be like, me too, you too, me too. Okay, all right, we're in this together. And a huge thank you to Laura Lynn Knight for taking the time to talk to us and be that person where, you know, I'm going, am I crazy or is homework a struggle? And she said it straight for us, so I appreciate that. And as always, a big thank you to all of you for tuning in to Mom Squad. We'll see you right back here next week.